It's such a privilege to be able to speak at this gathering that envisions something that is better for women, something that's better for men, and something that's better for unborn children too. So my name is Lois McLatchie, and I work with the ADF International team at the Human Rights Council at the United Nations here in Geneva. So my colleagues and I have the privilege of working with diplomats, and we use our expertise in human rights law to ensure that all countries are able to protect life of all their people from conception until natural death. So in my work here, the subject of unborn children is sometimes framed in the narrative of women against children. Often I'm asked, how can we protect the rights of women if you believe that a child has the right to life from conception? Well, my answer to you today is that we don't have to choose. I'll be aiming to demonstrate this to you over the next 10 minutes or so, using the prism of human rights law to examine the need, firstly, to support children and women, and lastly, men in this context. So firstly, let's look at the child. So the child's life is undoubtedly protected by international instruments. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights declared in 1948 that everybody has the right to life with no caveats. 20 years later, the ICCPR codified this right and went even further to affirm the need to protect unborn children as a separate individual from the bodies of their mothers. Now, almost every country in the world has signed this ICCPR agreement. Article 6 of this agreement mandates that should the death penalty be enforced in a country, a guilty woman must not be subjected to it if she is pregnant. So we see here that the separation of the rights of the innocent unborn child is different from the guilty criminal in the eyes of the law. Finally, if you'll permit me at this point just to reference one last piece of international law for now, I'll point us to the Convention on the Rights of the Child adopted in 1989, which has since become the most widely ratified convention in international law. The preamble to this text explicitly states that the child, and I quote, needs special safeguards and care, including appropriate legal protection before as well as after birth. Now, what these three examples of international law that I've just shown you show us is that the law protects the child as a separate human being from his mother, worthy of care, protection, and rights. Indeed, abortion not only discriminates against unborn children because they are less developed than us, but often also it discriminates against them because they are found to be less worthy of life due to disability or even their gender. Babies who suffer from Down syndrome or clubfoot or even cleft palate can be highly vulnerable to this awful form of discrimination. In many countries, the law proves a bias against people with disabilities by allowing for their abortion at a later gestational period than another child without disability. This is institutionalized inequality. It is a prejudiced assumption that a person with disabilities cannot live a full and fruitful life and bring joy to others around them. It is a violation of human dignity and human rights. A study published last year estimated also that about 23 million girls around the world have been lost to us since 1970 due to sex abortion. It is heartbreaking to think that their potential achievements and contributions to society have been snuffed out because they were girls, and all ironically in the misconstrued name of women's rights. So while the right to life is clear in the international law, there is no human right to abortion. So what does this mean for women? Do they not have rights? On the contrary. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that abortion is not usually a preferential choice. Women often approach a clinic vulnerable and desperate, feeling that they don't have adequate support to become mothers or even to carry their child to full term. Sentencing women to the trauma of abortion is completely inconsistent with ethics, which celebrates the fundamental dignity and freedom of each person. In today's society, women have fallen victim of a culture where sex has become detached from the principles of love, commitment, and family. Across Europe, hundreds of thousands of women have taken on the challenge of being single mothers, and they do an incredible selfless job. But human rights law contains provisions so that no woman should have to struggle alone, especially not to the extent of sacrifice. In my time looking at abortion in the UK, I've been struck by the story of Alina and the Be Here For Me campaign, which I really encourage you all to look at. Alina faced a pregnancy alone after being abandoned by her boyfriend. She faced a situation of darkness with no hope, but thankfully, because of the pro-life message, her life was transformed. She said that this transformation occurred because all she needed was some help, and there were some pro-lifers there to offer it to her as an alternative outside the clinic. Again and again in international law, binding documents call for the widest possible protection and assistance to be accorded to the family, just like those pro-lifers were offering. CEDAW, the convention in international law that specifically exists to eliminate discrimination against women, calls for all countries to recognize the common responsibility of men and women in the upbringing and development of their children. So why should we allow the abortion industry to enable men and society more broadly to shirk their duties in supporting the mother? CEDAW goes further and insists that states actively combat maternity discrimination in the workplace, and among other things, provide the facilities and services that working women need with regards to childcare. Despite popular narratives promoted by Hollywood, true feminism is not forcing a woman to choose between motherhood or a successful career. It's broadening the platform to allow her to thrive in both of these unique and wonderful capacities. Finally, there is more than one person involved in a pregnancy. Imagine with me for a moment that your child's life was being taken and you had no say about it. How would you feel? Tragically, this is reality for many fathers in Romania who have limited legal standing to fight against abortion of their child. While multiple pieces of international law promote the idea of equal responsibility in raising children, most countries have not applied this during the period before birth. Part of what you're doing by meeting here today and celebrating life is helping to push back against the culture that burdens women, erodes fatherhood, and fails to protect. The pro-life message can inspire a society that supports mothers and fathers to raise their children instead of turning to the trauma of abortion, which has tremendously scarring psychological implications, as well as ending the life of the child. So, if you are a man who cares for and respects women and children, then do not bow to the pressure to remain silent. Raise your voice and shape the culture. Stand alongside women who boldly choose life. Women, we must speak up too. Speaking out because we will not tolerate a society that silences our troubles by sending us to terminate our children. It may be that some of us listening today have undergone an experience like this and have experienced the trauma that I'm speaking about. And I want to let you know that the pro-life movement is not alien from you. The pro-life ethic embraces you too, offering love and support and hopes to partner with you to help other women who are facing this seemingly impossible decision today. So to conclude, the pro-life message is not exclusive. It's for life, for parents, for children. It defeats human wrongs and it celebrates human rights, and all lives matter. So keep going, and thank you so much for your time.